This is the Mental Metal Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Toman. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Metal Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. Hello and welcome to the Mental Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Toman. And I am thankful that you are here. I appreciate you tuning in, paying attention, liking, sharing. Do me a favor. You find some stuff, you find me on YouTube, like it, share it, subscribe it. These little things help me grow, help me spread that message, reach more people. Takes you, 30 seconds? Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Find me on Apple, find me on Spotify, find me wherever. Like, share, do those things. It really matters. I see a growth. I see the more people do that, the more people I reach, the more people I help. So do me a favor. Do it now. Pause, hit like, hit subscribe. It's the least you can do, right? It's a free resource. I'm putting it out there, put this time and effort into, not to beg, but come on, help me out, right? So it takes a little bit of time to put this together, get the guests, put this together, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, I am begging a little bit. Hit the like, share, subscribe, all those things. I really appreciate it. And speaking of guests, I have a phenomenal guest today. Her name is Olivia Lett. A little bit of I didn't say this a whole lot when she was on because she wouldn't appreciate that. But she's a little bit of a basketball legend in Illinois. Been just a phenomenal player. We talked about it. We talk about it in there a little bit, but I got to preface a little bit of what she did. I'm going to run through a little bit of her bio here. So she played at Pana High School, which is basketball is a big deal in Pana. So to be a basketball player from Pana is a big deal. She was their all-time leading scorer in high school with 2,439 points. That's a lot. She went on, played at Illinois Wesleyan. She played at 2 Final Fours there. She was the 2012 national championship, and she was the point guard on that team. She was the 2012 D3 Hoops Player of the Year, right? So she's the best player in Division III women's college basketball in 2012. She was their single season scoring leader. CCIW, that's the conference player of the year. She went on, played a little bit of professional basketball, did well there, went on to coaching. At one point, she was a Division III assistant coach of the year. Took over at Millikan University, which is always interesting because she played at Wesleyan and she went on to Millikan, and that's a big rivalry there. So she went into a rival school and coached there for, I believe, 6 years, ended up with a 105 wins and 48 losses record, which is starting with a team. I think she said they won 8 games their first year, so she had a lot of work to do then. She made some Sweet 16s, 2-time CCIW Coach of the Year, 3-time CCIW champs. She's done really, really well, and now she's moved on, and she's got the head coaching job at a Division II school in Illinois, University of Illinois Springfield. So she has a new challenge before her in starting a new program that has struggled a little bit lately, and she's got to start the whole process over. And that's what makes this a really good interview, is that we have an individual that was a phenomenal player, has taken some of what she did as a player, turning it into how to be a really successful coach, and how she has and how she plans to build these ideas and build a new culture. And just a phenomenal interview. a great listen uh, from a really good basketball player and what's becoming a really good coach. So enjoy the episode. I'm going to be on after the interview and just chat a few things about what I pick up and how you can implement that into your own coaching style and how you're trying to develop mental toughness and how you're trying to develop culture. So enjoy the episode with University of Illinois Springfield Stars women's coach, Olivia Lett. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. And welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Toman, and I'm here with my guest today, Olivia Lett, the new head coach of the University of Illinois Springfield Stars women's program. How you doing, Coach?
I'm good. I'm just getting settled in, it feels like, and starting to figure things out.
Head above water at this point?
Barely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely some differences, D3 to D2 and private school to state school, and just figuring out what those things are. And I feel like every day I find a new mistake that I've made, so making sure that I clean up some of those too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the technical stuff the basketball is the same. It's all the technical stuff that you got to figure it out because it'll get you in trouble as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I definitely put the wrong thing on the wrong credit card going in today, so I gotta clean that mess up a little bit.
If it's done in good faith and not on purpose, I'm sure everything's good, right? But but you got to figure it out because it's just more headaches.
Yes, absolutely. But everybody here has been very, very helpful in the first few weeks. You know, everyone's willing to jump in and do those things, and I think that helps you be successful faster as well.
Yeah, it's a good program, good school, and it's always helpful to come into a place like that. Coming from another good school, you spent how many years at Millikan?
Was there for 6 years. One of those was COVID, so that helped everybody grow quite a bit. But was there for 6 years, had surrounded by some great people, built a program that I think everybody that's gone through it has been very proud of, and obviously built on a lot of success that they had in years prior as well. Lori Kearns won a national championship there, and so to kind of get the program back to that level was a lot of fun to be a part of.
That's an interesting take. I hadn't even thought about that. You when you took that job, you were moving into a program that had a lot of storied success, right?
Yes.
And that could be daunting, right?
Yes.
Like, did you follow Lori or was there someone else in there?
No, I followed Lori.
Oh my goodness. I mean, never, like, that's one of the things in the coaching circles I always say is never follow a legend, but you did and you did it well. So that's good.
Yeah, I was the third coach that they've ever had there. So I was also the shortest tenured because they've had only 3 in their storied history. And, Lori was super helpful, but also allowed me to kind of do my own thing and figure it out by myself, make my own mistakes and learn from those. And so I think that it was great to be able to have her there, but have her kind of at a distance where she was willing to do whatever it was that the program needed, but not feel like I had to do it her way. And so she was able to give me that freedom too.
It didn't have to be that way because you're talking about you're coaching on a court with her name on it and she's still in the system there, right? Kudos to her for letting you do that, but it situations don't go well sometimes that's a situation that does not go well.
Absolutely. And, I think, between her, Deb Kick, Linda Slagle, there's been some really, really strong female coaches there that we're there to lean on if I needed it,
Yeah.
and just having that reassurance of if you need it, it's there, but that gives you the freedom to really kind of go do your own thing too, is a good thing. And I think it did help our program get really good really fast. And I think now, Lori in admissions is just killing it. And obviously she bleeds blue. And so it helps with every single women's basketball recruit that we were bringing on campus.
Yeah. No, it absolutely does. But the interesting part is that you went to a program that doesn't have that same sort of storied success, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah. And honestly, some itself.
Yeah, it's a different job you have in front of you.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think like I said, it's a different sell. It's a different thing that you're talking about. It's about being the first ones to do that. We can be the first to make an NCAA tournament, the first to win a conference title, to do some of those things that haven't been done before, partly because they were NAIA and, I don't know all the success prior to that. And now that they're Division II, it hasn't been Division II super long. We haven't had those type of successes. And so I think that's exciting to be part of something for the first time. And if I look back on my 6 years, some of the kids that are the most proud of what they did there are those kids that started when we won 8 games the first year and made it to a Sweet 16, because they know how much work went into that and how much extra effort that took. And so I'm excited to kind of get to experience that again and maybe change some things, hopefully, when we get to that point, of how do we sustain that? How do we sustain that hunger and that excitement, and not let it be something where, okay, we have to win a national championship and we're ignoring the conference titles and the small successes along the way.
Yeah, and that's tricky. I mean, they're both tough jobs. Building culture is a tough job. Maintaining culture and maintaining the hunger, but they're different jobs, but they're both worthwhile pursuits.
Absolutely. Very, very different. And I think that, it was my first time kind of experiencing that as a head coach. And so learning from that, looking at things that maybe I would do differently. And obviously we're still in a very good position, but I think even going into this coming season, if I would have stayed at Millikan, I was starting to think about things a little bit differently, how we were going to approach things, what the conversations that we were having, were all going to change a little bit going into the fall. And I think that's definitely prepared me for this position as well.
Well, I don't think you ever want to get on autopilot, right? I think you're always wanting to find things differently no matter where you are. You don't have an option here. Everything's new, everything's the first. So you have to do those things. Yeah,
and we've hit the ground running. We've got a few commits. We've got some things that we're excited about going into the year. The anytime that a program changes, whether it's been successful or not successful, it's about getting people on board. It's about getting everybody moving in the same direction, regardless of what that direction is. If you're all moving in the same direction, you're going to be more successful. If we're all going separate ways, then it's going to be hard to be successful. And so it was important for us to be able to get some recruits this summer and help with moving it in the direction that we want to move it. And there's going to be ups and downs throughout the season. And so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see how it goes. And I'm excited for you to be able to build that culture and just watch you help build the program. I know you'll be successful at it. I want to go back a little bit. And before we get into some of how you do this, we're talking about building this culture and we've got some ideas on mental toughness and how you're going to do this and how you build a culture. I want to go back to your past a little bit because I think your past and what you've done as a player and a coach always factors in. And I'm going to put this. I'm going to put this in the most humble way that maybe not make you blush, but a lot of times you get players that are phenomenally good. It's hard for them to be a coach because I'm not saying that things were easy for you when you played, but things were a lot easier for you than it were for a lot of the people that you coach now. And I'm going to say that because you dropped over 2 grand points in high school at Pana High School. Not many people do that, right? So I never forget I'm older than you are, obviously, but I was working at a college and I was working my first job. I was working at Tate & Lyle in Decatur, Illinois. It's not Tate & Lyle anymore. It used to be A.E. Staley, the whole thing right there. So if you've been through Decatur, you smell it and you know it, right? Yeah. And I was working with a guy, and he was originally from Pana, and he knew I love basketball and played. And he was like, "Hey, you got to come watch this girl play, Olivia Lett, just dropping points." And I'm like, "Okay, really?" And then I start watching you, and I'm like, "He's right. Like, she's pretty solid." So you go from there, and you go to Illinois Wesleyan, and you have like a phenomenal career there. Leading up to, was it at one point you were Division III Player of the Year?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying not to make you blush on this, but what I'm saying is you're a phenomenal player that obviously had a lot of skill, a lot of ability, but also a lot of hard work. How does that factor into the way you coach now and the way you lead young women?
Yeah, I think that I think there's a perk to it. There's negatives of it. All of those things, right? It's just how you look at it, how you frame it, and I think you want to frame it from both sides of it. You want to see the positives and the negatives. I think some of the positives are it's easier to sell that I understand somewhat from an individual level, right? When I was recruiting Elise Knudsen, a lot of it was like, I know what it takes to be an All-American. I know exactly what it takes from an individual level. So I can help set you up for those things. I know what it's got to look like from a day-to-day grind. I know what it's got to look like in terms of preparation, the mental side of things, all of those things. And so I think when you're trying to get some of those elite players or players that really want to just get better individually, it really helps with that side of it. On the flip side of that, one of the places where I don't feel as strong at times is X's and O's, because I do feel like there were things that I could make happen as a player that I didn't necessarily want sets or need sets or that side of stuff. And so it's a little bit harder for me when it comes to X's and O's sometimes. And I'm honest with that when it comes to recruiting stuff. Like, I'm not going to out X and O a lot of coaches. We're going to make sure that we're really well prepared, that we get off the bus with the best players. That's our goal in recruiting, is to make sure we get off the bus with the best players. So that's going to factor into it. I think early on in my coaching career as well, I found a lot of times coaches will say the same thing over and over and over again, right? And I would need to do things sometimes in order to be able to explain it in a different way. And so I would need to feel it to be able to explain how to do it in a different verbiage, right? So I knew how to do it physically, but I didn't know how to put it into words. And so early on, I definitely felt that a lot more. I think that I've progressed there, but that's something that's definitely something that you're a little bit unprepared for as a young coach.
Well, and it could be, as a young coach, I'm assuming that's also then frustrating. Just go do it, right?
Right.
Just why don't you just go do it, right?
Yes, and I definitely would say that I'm probably harder on our point guards because I was a 6-foot point guard, right? And I understand that allowed me to see the floor differently. And I see the floor differently as a point guard than a 5'6" point guard. There was things that I did that was different than the way that they can play. And that's something that has definitely taken some adjustment as well.
Yeah, I think absolutely. All those little factors, again, factor in. It's interesting. You got into the X's and what's the old thing? Jimmy's and Joe's beat X's and O's, that type of thing. And that's what you're talking about. But it, as a Division III, and then now even a Division II, one of the tricks, one of the things a coach has to be good at is you got to convince people to come down a level or 2 levels and choose success over, honestly, ego. I don't know what it is, but how do you manage to do that?
Yeah, I think, some of it is finding kids that fall through the cracks, that maybe don't have as many looks. Elise is an example that she didn't play AAU going into her senior year. So it's getting out and getting into high school gyms and making some of those local connections. Bailey Kaufman was a kid that didn't play AAU super heavily. Abby Ratch did, but on a lower level team for us. And so we've gotten a lot of kids that weren't heavy AAU kids. And I think that helped us be successful because we found some of those kids that fell through the cracks a little bit. Now, do I think a lot of kids on our roster, if not almost every kid on a roster. Could have played on a Division II team. Yeah, I do. I think that they were skilled enough. And so I still think that they had to make that decision, because I think they could have pursued it harder, gone and walked on, done some of those things, but they chose to be a part of something, a part of the, the academic side. That first full recruiting class, they graduated with a cumulative 3.83 4-year GPA. That's impressive. So they wanted to be part of the academic side, be a part of really, really creating something, trying to win a national championship, make a Final Four. Obviously, we fell a little bit short there, but I think that they all had amazing experiences. They're best friends, and so I think it's about really knowing who you are. And I think that's what we knew at Millikan. We were going after blue collar kids that really wanted to win. And we did stay very, very local. And, that's kind of our goal at UIS as well. We have 5 commits for this year and next year right now. And of those 5 commits, 4 are within 90 minutes of Springfield. And so we want to control the area. And I think that allows you to get some of those elite kids too, because they're excited about playing with some of the other people from the area.
Yeah. And how do you sell to those kids now? Not only that, the kids that maybe could go up a level to come and play to a program that struggled the last couple of years. How do you sell that now? Because you didn't have, like at Millikan, after a little bit, that sells itself a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. I think the thing that was hurting us at Millikan was also playing time, especially there for a while.
Yep.
We had basically the same roster for 3 straight seasons. The COVID year, the year we went to the Sweet 16, and the following year. And so for kids, it was hard to see playing time, because they could see some of those people, the Bailey Kaufman class, her initial class was so strong that it was really hard to see where there was playing time available, other than here or there. And so I think initially it always starts with the playing time part of it. And I think that's okay, because it's hard to sit there and not play. At the end of the day, that is part of the reason that kids are still playing at the college level, is they want to be part of it. They want to actually be out there on the floor. It takes a special person to not do that. We had 2 seniors this year that were phenomenal people, that were the practice guys for most of their career. And, I think everybody that has been through our program for 4 years would tell you that those were 2 of the most committed kids on the team. And they have the most respect for those type of kids. But that's hard. And
it's very hard. Yeah.
It's not an easy thing. And I'm not going to say every decision that I make is in reflection to the fact that they do work their butts off. Because, my job is to win games and to make sure that we graduate kids and all of those things. But sometimes those kids do get forgotten. And I think that, it's hard to get people to believe in that process. And I think we were still able to do that at Millikan, especially when they could see the playing time. But right now, it is promising, not promising playing time, but it's promising that opportunity of playing time. And how are you going to come in and compete and really finding those people that want to earn that playing time?
Mental Mettle Coaching is driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that will allow athletes and coaches to grow, play, and live in a positive way. We offer a range of coaching and professional development services. First and foremost, we offer individual mental coaching for athletes, and it's easily the most efficient and effective way to help athletes replace fear and anxiety with positivity and confidence. Mental Mettle Coaching has helped middle school setters to high school lacrosse middies to D1 offensive linemen. If you have an athlete that needs to improve their mindset in athletics, mental coaching is the answer. We also offer team coaching, which uses the same concepts as individual mental coaching, but applies them in a group setting. Team bonding outings are great, but they do nothing to address the thoughts and feelings that can derail a team. Team coaching does address that, and it's a great option for helping your team grow. Finally, Mental Mettle Coaching offers social, emotional learning, professional development programs for educators and coaches. There are self-paced online programs, there are virtual coaching options, and even in-person seminars available. This PD will help increase the mental health of your staff and eventually your student athletes and the culture of your school. All of the Mental Mettle Coaching programs have the same goal. Our mission is to help athletes and coaches develop a resilient and spirited mindset that will help them confidently face any obstacles or challenges they seek, regardless of their situation. If you would like to see the same in your athlete, your team, and your staff, contact Coach Toman for more information. Well, and that leads me into another question is like, what's coming into a new program like this that has had struggles over the last couple of years, and you got kids coming in and out, and it's very transient. You're like, what's day one? Like, how do you be like you've got a mountain to climb? What's the first step?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if I've figured out what day one looks like yet. A lot of it is trying to get people on board and figure out who's gonna fully be on board and who's not. Who's gonna lead us through some of those tough times, and who just naturally are some of the leaders, because there is a natural thing that comes with that, where people naturally follow certain people, right? As much as no one wants to hear that, everybody wants to believe that they can be a leader. There's some people that people don't follow, and that's okay. They can still be a leader in a certain way because they're modeling the right things. But there are certain people that people just gravitate towards, and so it's important to figure out who are those people and get them on board or get them off the bus. One of the two. You got to be moving in the right direction, and so I think that's really, really important. One of the things that I try to say to people is the hardest part about moving from, assistant coach to head coach or taking over a new program is that first day that you walk into practice, you are the only person that knows everything. And what I mean by that is when I walked into a practice at Millikan, I could say a drill's name, and 75% of the people in that gym were going to just run to the right spots. They were going to run there. They were going to have their jerseys tucked in. They were going to cheer the right way. They were going to count the right way. They were going to talk the right way. They were going to catch the ball with two hands. They were going to do all of those little things. But the first day that you walk into practice, no one else knows that, except for maybe your staff. But if they haven't been with you, they truly don't understand that expectation either. And that was a little overwhelming, my first week at Millikan. I think I'm a little bit more prepared for it now. And obviously the extra days at Division II help as well, because I can break it down a little bit more. And we can, we truly teach a drill or two drills or one concept in some of those smaller workouts at the beginning of the year. And so really attacking that part, I think as an assistant coach, it's easy to sit there and think, oh, I would do this different. I would do this different. I would do this different. But you forget that you're the person that has to implement all of it from day one. And I definitely was not an exception to that. I understood, I underestimated how much as a head coach you also have to realize that, that battle's not worth fighting today, or, this is more important and it's going to take a while for us to get to that thing before I can really try to change that.
Yeah. The distance between the assistant coach chair and the head coach chair is a lot more than the 18 inches. It's, yes. It's difficult. You're talking about making sure everybody knows what you're doing. I mean, you're talking about the necessity of having a whole lot of clarity and a whole lot of communication.
Yes. And I think that's going to be the same thing, here, as much as from assistant coach to head coach to another head coach. It's the same thing. You have to be ready to communicate as much as you possibly can and over communicate and be ready to work with people through some of those misunderstandings too.
Well, and I loved what you said about that's not a battle I have to fight today, which is, I think that comes a little bit with age and wisdom too. Like, I think it's young. I know when I was younger doing some stuff, it was like we had to fix everything every day, every time. And then you just go home and you're just drained.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually helped a friend. They had me read their cover letter for a job. And I said, you know what? I read it and I said, I'm going to guess your head coach isn't very good at this. They're late to practice. This happens sometimes. And they're like, well, how did you know that? And I was like, because the things that you listed in your cover letter that you think are important as a head coach, yes, I agree that they're important, but they're not things that are the end all be all. There's a lot of other things that go into it, whether it's budget, whether it's, just making sure everybody grade wise is on top of things, making sure your schedule is ready to go, make sure all those bigger things that are bigger fish to fry on a day-to-day basis, that sometimes do make you lack in some of those areas that as an assistant coach are very annoying.
Well, and that's why as the head coach, I think having the good assistants and having people around you to pick up those other little, like it's extremely important.
Absolutely. I think that's who makes you successful, right? I think even being able to turn over some of the recruiting stuff, which, I've been able to do at different times, just to at Division III, you're trying to get more kids there, and you've got to have a bigger pool, and it's a little bit less evaluation, a little bit more like, okay, we've decided that they're at least close to good enough. Now we've got to see if they're interested in Milliken type of thing. And so it's a little bit different. I think at this level, there is a little bit more evaluation side of it. Okay, we've only got this many scholarships. We got to make sure that they truly fit who we are. And yes, we're going to have to go out there and pursue people, but it's going to be a little bit different what that part looks like.
Yeah. And like you said, it's just a different rule set. It's a different situations, and it's going to take you a little bit to get used to, but I'm sure you'll do well. So, one of the things you talked about people being on board, and I get it. But also, coach, that's coach speak, right? That's like what is for you? What's on board? What's that mean? What are you looking for?
I think our slogan right now has been greater than 94. So it talks about, being more than just the 94 feet of basketball court that you see. And so we talk about wanting to be, great moms, great wives, great business people someday, right? Like that's the goal. And so what does that look like? And how do we get there? I know Kramer over at Milliken's got his pillars. We've kind of got our things that we talk about. And so one is authentic. We want you to be who you are and be true to each other and be honest with each other and tell each other the hard truths. But we also want it to be a safe space for everybody, right? And if we become all of too much of all the same thing, and we don't respect some of those viewpoints or some of those things that other people believe or what they like, then we're not being that, we're not truly allowing people to be their authentic self. And so that kind of goes a lot of different ways. Next one's undeniable, which you and I'm assuming are going to talk about. We've talked about a little bit. Undeniable is, a lot of people talk about relentless, and it's that idea of just continuing to fight. Undeniable is not just continuing to fight, but it's getting up and finding a way to win. And I think that's the part that is really important. It's not just getting back up. It's figuring out, okay, what do I need to do differently? How do I find a way to win? How do I get myself prepared to go that extra little bit and figure out what needs to be done and just do it? And I think, one of the things that I told people at Milliken is our kids graduated with the ability to just figure out what needed to be done. They could look around and they could figure out what needed to be done. And that's the reason that they were going to be successful, because they had that skill. They didn't wait for somebody to tell them what to do. They were going to take their success into their own hands. Or the program's success into their own hands. And I do think that's looking around and seeing what trash needs to be picked up, or seeing that the clock hasn't been set up for practice. Like, you are setting us up for success. You're not going to let the excuse be, oh, well, coach didn't do that, so now practice is 10 minutes late. You're taking it into your own hands. The next one is selflessness. Same thing, kind of falls. That one's the most easy to explain, right? People understand that part right from the beginning. It's just giving to your teammates and not thinking about yourself, and figuring out what role you can give. And I think everyone talks about that to some extent. And the last one is every day. And so we talk about doing the everyday things every single day, right? So it's play off of, I promise you I was coming up with that at the same time that Illinois started to use it, but they've got their everyday guys, and it's exactly the same thing. I don't think it's about just doing it every single day. It's about what are you doing every single day, doing those little things. Being great is really boring. You've got to do the boring drills. It's doing the ball handling drills. It's doing the same shooting drills over and over and over again. It's not always trying to add something to your bag. Everybody's interested in that now, right? Because that gets the clicks on social media. But it's about doing the really, really boring things over and over and over again. So those are kind of our pillars. I don't remember what the question was that you asked to begin with, but that's kind of what we're talking about in our program, and what is some of those expectations.
I asked you what it meant to be on board, and you came up with your pillars, which is phenomenal. And I think that it's always interesting to me every time I talk to a coach that's done really well and has a lot of success. They have these, whether they call them pillars, whether they have values, it doesn't matter. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what those pillars are. Right. It does, but it doesn't. No, because nobody's going to make something awful, right? Like, you know what I mean? We all
Yes.
have that. We all have, as coaches, as humans, as players, whatever. We have the idea of what things should be about, right?
Right.
The importance is naming them, making them obvious, and being your focus, right?
Right.
So when you're talking about getting kids on board, that's what you're looking for, and I love it. And I do love, and words matter, right? It gives
Yes.
us a true north. It gives us an idea of what we're shooting for. Whether I'm here, am I being undeniable today? Am I being authentic today? No, I need to be doing this instead. It gives us something to work towards. And I love the undeniable one. That's a cool, it's just not one I've heard before, the way that people use. Where did that come from?
One day actually, so I struggled with all this because of what you said. I didn't want just a bunch of words randomly all over the place, right? And I think that's hard when you're a young coach. Like, yes, you're trying to get something that's like clicky, right? Like people are like, oh, that's cool. And so it took us a while. We didn't have greater than 94 until I think the year that we went to the Sweet 16 was when we started using that. And then what that meant took a little bit longer. And it started honestly with just a team brainstorm. Like, okay, how would you describe our team to other people? And what do we like out of some of those things? And so, we had, I think we might have had a word for each person that was on the roster. Like each person contributed a word, and I might have been the person that narrowed it down. I don't remember, and I don't remember who came up with undeniable. I know relentless was on there a lot, and I was like, everybody uses that. I don't know if I love that because of the reason that I explained what undeniable is, and I do think it's the hardest one for our kids to define sometimes too, because it's not a word. I mean, I don't even know if it's a real word. I believe it is, but it's not a word that's often used, right? And so I think that one is what kind of is that separator. It allows us to get some of those blue collar kids that truly believe in that part of it. We want to get after loose balls. We take a lot of charges. Miranda Fox took 4 charges in one game. Bailey Kaufman broke her jaw and then immediately came back and took a charge, in her first game back. And so I think that is what being undeniable is. That's not just being relentless. That's being undeniable. You're going to find a way to win regardless of what your own situation is.
Yeah, coaches love kids to take charges.
Yes.
It fits so much of what you're talking about. It's that selflessness. It's undeniable. It's so much like when both my kids were playing. My daughter was a senior. My son was a sophomore in high school, and they were both good players. And they're doing a lot. And we could have done a lot of things, but the only thing my wife and I put up on our board in our refrigerator is we tracked the number of charges they took.
That's awesome.
And that became the. Of course, my son's dropping points and doing all, but they're like, this is what we cared about, because that meant that you were really digging in, right?
Absolutely.
And I love that. I love the undeniable idea. It's a great, and it's interesting you're talking about how that comes up. Well, first of all, I do some stuff when I work with teams. I do a couple different sessions where we do that, where we're doing just what you're talking about. We talk about what's valuable to them, what's important to them, what it means to them to be on the team, what they should strive for, and we do what you did. We do a little brainstorming. We come up, and if you can come out one of those sessions, and I'm not telling people listening that you got to hire me, but you need to have these sessions with your players, right? Where you talk about what's important to them, what they see in the team, what they want to represent, rather than just show up the first day. Like, undeniable means more to them, or it will, or whoever you talk to. It means more to them if they go through that process than if you just show up one day with a t-shirt and say, here's our t-shirt that says undeniable. This is what I want you to do. Go wear it.
Yeah.
Right. It matters. Yeah.
And like looking back now, I think it's hard as a coach. Like it is hard to continue to have those type of things and have those meetings and have those things where you're really, allowing them to take ownership. And also, part of what I loved about Division III, and I do want to continue here, is like I don't want all their time. I don't want them to feel like it is always a job, right? And so finding that balance of not having them at the gym for 7 hours a day between meetings and workouts and their lifts and all of that type of stuff, and still being able to have these important conversations, it's hard. And there are times where I don't do a good job of it. And I think, just hearing you talk as well, one of the things that I think it won't be as important right away, but especially down the road, is a lot of these pillars were already created, right? And so how do you then turn that into something where this new group is taking ownership of it? Not just this is what we do, but what does this look like to you? Yes, this is what we do, but how are we going to define this as this group? Not just necessarily this is how the last group has defined it and this is what you're going to do. And that's somewhere that I definitely, through this conversation, I'm like, okay, I got to get better at that.
You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Metal Coaching now offers professional development for coaches explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Metal Coaching today. No amount of athletic talent or physical ability can overcome a poor mindset. Anxiety, fear, and negativity will always diminish an athlete's abilities and limit their success. If you're not intentionally developing your child's mental toughness, then they are not reaching their full potential. Mental Metal Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. That's I didn't do this to talk about this to spit advice to you because you're better, you know more than I do, but ownership matters, right? And that time that you think you're missing from practice time or lift time, you're like, oh, we got to do this, we got to work on this. Right. It spending time getting them to have ownership in those words and those pillars is time well spent. It just really is. So, but then you also have to have gym time. And what's really interesting is when I asked you about mental toughness, you went straight to physical conditioning, which I don't know if your girls know this yet, but that's got to make them a little pause a little bit if they don't know this yet.
Yeah, I think, that part of it is what allows the mental part of it to take over too, right? Can you push through some of those things? One of our goals as a team is to be the best conditioned team. And I think we've had groups that have really taken ownership of that. Miranda Fox and Jasmine Brown were two of them in our mile stuff that were like running 5 somethings real early on when our mile test was guards needed to be at 6:30. And so it was, they kind of set that bar. And Chelsea McCollum was the next one that was like right there. And Elise was somebody that as an All-American was still cutting off 10 seconds of her mile time. And she did that going into her senior year. And that's almost unheard of. And so I think that allowed them to put themselves on another level, right? And they understood that when they got to that fourth quarter, if it was a tie game, they felt great because they knew other people had not gone through the same things that they had gone through. And so, I think that's a big part of it is just the understanding that, okay, everybody else is getting tired and I'm just getting warmed up. And I felt that as a player because I was never like this amazing, like, oh, I'm going to go out and run and get super conditioned. I worked out all the time. I played basketball all the time, but I never excelled on the track of like, okay, I'm going to go run a great mile time. And going into my senior year, something just flipped and I figured it out. And I got to this mode of like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen when I'm running, right? Like the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to like black out. And then I'm going to be fine. So I got to that mode of like, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And you don't really get to that point ever, right? Very few people can get to that point. And it really got to this like, okay, I'm getting stronger as other people are getting more tired. And that's something that I think just it takes a different mental level. I don't know what makes it click with people, but I do feel like, for us, that mile test has been a big part of that because there is that point where you want to slow down and everything in you is telling you, oh, I'm okay. I can just keep going at the same pace, but you got to tell yourself to go harder just to maintain. And that's something that I don't know. I'm very proud of the kids that have bought into that and that have started to figure that out for us. So we'll see how it goes here.
No, you're talking about what makes it flip the switch to want to
Yeah.
be able to do that. Well, that's the trick part. I think it's different for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the motivation to want to do it, because it's painful. It's painful to want to put yourself through these things. So I think that finding it can be built off of your, the selflessness and the authentic, and it can be built off that, but it's different for everybody. Right. And to be fair, it doesn't always click with everybody. Some people just they don't like, I don't want to flip that switch because that's painful and I don't want to do it. But it's interesting. You're talking about and I agree. If you're completely very well conditioned, it helps you be mentally tough, because the old adage, fatigue makes cowards of us all, right? Like if you're not fatigued, you're not as much of a coward. But you're describing, when you're talking about doing things that are boring over and over again and putting in the time on the track and putting on and being conditioned, you're talking about, when we're talking about a player over the summer, a basketball player especially, doing these things, it's a boring, it's a, like, when you watch a person do it, you're like, it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's like, I don't want to do that, right? It's putting in
Absolutely.
so many hours,
Absolutely.
and
And
it's boring.
our kids know pretty much what they should do when they go in the gym. I do think that's a big adjustment from high school to college. Is most people, when they've been through high school, they've never, that not everybody, but a lot of people have never been in the gym by themselves. So they don't actually know what they should do when they go in the gym without somebody telling them exactly what to do. And so one of our first practices here, one of our first, workouts when I was at Millikan, was always spent on, this is what an individual workout should do. These are the specific, or should look like. These are the specific drills that you should do. It's a certain amount of ball handling. These are the shots that you should get up. And almost every one of them, at least for the first 20 minutes, is shooting on the move and trying to get ourselves tired and because you're never going to stand there and just shoot in a game, or very seldom are you going to be completely fresh and just stand there and shoot. And so that's something that, they do literally the same workout all summer. And it's committing to the fact that, okay, that's going to help me get up the most shots. It's going to help me get up 300 shots in an hour-long workout, and that's a lot if you're not using a gun. To be able to get 300 plus shots in a workout without a rebounder, without a gun, that's moving, and that's really pushing yourself. And I don't like the excuse of not having a rebounder, right? So they know how to do almost every one of our shooting drills without a rebounder as well, because then you don't have a reason to not do it. And so I think that's what has set some of those kids that have been successful for us on, all conference level, or even just owning what their role is them understanding, I've either done that work or I haven't done that work, or this is what it's going to take to be successful on that level. Obviously Elise Knudsen is another level of that in terms of what her commitment has been and how many hours she puts into the gym and how many shots she gets up in a given day. And I don't think people understand how many, not just shots she gets up, but how many makes, and the level that she holds herself to. We would do a shooting drill that if she missed 2 in a row, she had to restart. Most people miss 3, 4 in a row and they don't even realize it, because they're still shooting, 6 for 10. If she missed 2 in a row, she had to restart. And that's just kind of holding yourself to another standard that then helps you shoot at a really, really high clip.
Yeah. But you don't get there overnight.
Right.
That takes a lot of progress. It's always amazing when you run into somebody in the gym who's doing that and can do those things and not missing. Like, I've watched kids do those drills, and it's amazing, but you don't get there overnight, right? It takes a little bit of,
yes,
you got to build on it and do all those things. So, Coach, what have we missed?
I think that was most of what you had asked me about. So I think that's a lot about our program and just kind of what we're trying to do. And obviously we're not perfect. I got lots to work on. I just learned more in this in terms of what I need to work on and just trying to reevaluate what the year looks like. And I think that's a part of being mentally tough too, is being able to figure out, okay, what did I do wrong? What do I need to fix? Because as a young coach, you are trying to prove yourself. And so sometimes it's hard to admit where it is that you need to be better with some of those things. And I think being vulnerable with your kids about that too is like, yeah, I'm not perfect. I don't know all of those things. We actually talked about love languages this spring and what that looks like, because all of these relationships, that plays into all of that too.
I love that idea. You got to be vulnerable with your kids because they see through it, right? They're smarter than that. They just are. if you're
Right.
trying to hide stuff or trying to be tough, and they get it. So last question. I kind of said it already, but what did I not ask you that I should have?
I don't know. I think that we got through most of it of who I am and what makes me go, and I'm excited to build here. I'm excited to hopefully continue a lot of the things that we did at Millikan, and that's going to take getting great people. I was fortunate at Millikan that we got a lot of young women and families to buy into what we were doing and to trust what we were doing and to want to be around other really good people. And so it's going to be important for us to do that again and get some of those really key players and by key players, I don't mean key on the court. Key, I mean like helping us build that culture of how do we grow? What do we want this program to be about? And for us, Aubrey Staten was one of my first commits, and she was huge for those 4 years. And then that next class, that was Bailey Kaufman, Abby Ratch, Sarah Ness, Chelsea McCollum, Natalie Snyder, and Miranda Fox. Of those 6, I think all 6 of them were were part of our top 9 when they graduated. So like that's a huge class to have that. And obviously that's a goal in any recruiting class, but to actually do it, that speaks to who they were as people and what they wanted to create.
Yeah. And now you've got that same opportunity before you. So it's exciting times for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, the UIS women's program's in good hands, and you'll do well. And I'm looking forward to seeing the progress and seeing the success.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, you bet, Coach. I sure appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Bye.
Mental Mettle Coaching is driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that will allow athletes and coaches to grow, play, and live in a positive way. We offer a range of coaching and professional development services. First and foremost, we offer individual mental coaching for athletes, and it's easily the most efficient and effective way to help athletes replace fear and anxiety with positivity and confidence. Mental Mettle Coaching has helped middle school setters to high school lacrosse middies to D1 offensive linemen. If you have an athlete that needs to improve their mindset in athletics, mental coaching is the answer. We also offer team coaching, which uses the same concepts as individual mental coaching, but applies them in a group setting. Team bonding outings are great, but they do nothing to address the thoughts and feelings that can derail a team. Team coaching does address that, and it's a great option for helping your team grow. Finally, Mental Mettle Coaching offers social, emotional learning, professional development programs for educators and coaches. There are self-paced online programs, there are virtual coaching options, and even in-person seminars available. This PD will help increase the mental health of your staff and eventually your student athletes and the culture of your school. All of the Mental Mettle coaching programs have the same goal. Our mission is to help athletes and coaches develop a resilient and spirited mindset that will help them confidently face any obstacles or challenges they seek, regardless of their situation. If you would like to see the same in your athlete, your team, and your staff, contact Coach Toman for more information. Another great interview. I enjoyed the conversation with Olivia Lett, and some of the things that I picked up on. Words matter, and I talk about this all the time, and having an idea, having your pillars, having your true north. I feel like maybe somebody will prove me wrong, but I think that if you want to be a successful coach, you have to have words. You have to have ideas. You have to have things that you are saying, things that you are sharing with your players and your parents, and also things that you are exemplifying. But they have to be these words that are important to you and your program. She talked about authenticity, and they wanted people to be themselves, not building robots. Is kind of what I took from that, which is always important. You're not trying to fit so much everybody into your in exactly what you want to be, but have them be the best version of themselves. And that takes authenticity. I talked about being selfless, which is always important. You got to be thinking about the teammates, other players, being every day. I like saying that twice. The every day. She talks about the boring things. You don't have to really lean into all this stuff, whatever sport you play, that heavily. You don't, to enjoy it. You can do it in a passing way. You can be like, I enjoy playing basketball. I enjoy playing volleyball, baseball, whatever. You can do these things. You can enjoy it, and you can take them for what they are and have it be a really mentally healthy way to do it. But if you really want to be great at something, if you want to succeed in a very big way, and if you want to get things done, and that's important to a lot of people. If you want that greatness, if you want to achieve at a very high level, you have to be a little bit boring. You have to be all about doing things every day and being very disciplined in what you're going to do and knowing what you want to accomplish and the best way to get there and building. And I'm not saying that that's not unhealthy, not mentally healthy to do that, because it can be, because some people need that. Some people really want that. They like that repetition. They like that boredom, and they really like is they want that recognition and building towards those things. I get that. That's fine. It does a little bit. It depends a little bit on what you want. But if you want that greatness, if you want to chase that, if you got to have, and if you're a coach and you want this on your team, you got to have some players that do that, and they need to understand that. You're really good players. You're great players. They need to understand that this everyday idea is important, and that boring, relentless pursuit is important. And then her other one, she said that we talked a lot about, she didn't like the word relentless, but it's very similar, is undeniable. And just how that meant getting knocked down, but get up, and not letting things get in your way, and knowing what you want and just moving towards forward. And just, I love that undeniable. It will not be denied. I have what I want. I know what I want. I'm going to go and get it. And it is important to have these words, and they have to mean something to you. She talked about how that was something that they developed in her days at Millikan, something they created in a group conversation. They talked about being undeniable and what that meant to those players, and that helped them have, again, that true north. And this is what we're shooting for. This is how I want to act and what I want to do. And I can't say it enough. And I mentioned to her with her, but if you're a coach and you're looking for these words and these pillars to share with your team, they can't be just ideas that you throw at them and say, this is what you're going to do, and just put it on a t-shirt and think that it's going to do anything. It has to be something that's discussed. It has to be something that's exemplified. It has to be something that is part of your culture every day. And that's what culture is. Culture is what we do daily. If you want to have an undeniable attitude in the moments that it matters, you need to have it in the moments that you think it doesn't matter. You need that undeniable attitude all the time, every day. It has to be part of your culture. That's hard. That's boring, right? That gets, people get tired of that, but it has to be something that you show. And honestly, it helps a lot if the players have some ownership in that. And if it's not a word that you just threw at them, but it's a word that you have some ownership with. And there's your kids, your players are going to come up with a good word if with a little bit of guidance, a little bit of help. You have a brainstorming session, or you hire a coach like me, or you bring somebody else in, or you have an assistant do it, or you do it, or whomever. But having this time to have them talk about their values. Talk about what's important to them, why basketball or volleyball or whatever sport they play, why it's important to them, what it means for them to be on this team, and what they want this team to represent. Have a conversation with it. Have a brainstorming. I promise you're going to have some great answers. You're going to have some great insight. And then come up with a word or two or a pillar or a value that you really want to focus on as a team. And then that's what you throw on a t-shirt. That's what you show every day. That's what you hold them accountable to, or they hold each other accountable to. Those words and those actions that go with those words are going to be so much better. You're going to see it better. You're going to see the progress better. You're going to see growth in your culture. Is it a word that you came up with? Maybe not. Maybe you wanted a different word or a different idea better? Maybe. But to me, it's not as important as the ownership, and the ownership matters, and having them being owners of those words and an owner of those ideas. And you can build those into your culture. I think it really matters. I've seen a lot of programs do that. They grow from it, and having those ideas that they create and then that they show and lead and just are great examples of. So a great conversation with Coach Lett. I can't wait to see how she employs some of her ideas in her new gig. I have every belief that she's going to be very successful there at UIS, and I'm excited to see her grow and develop and build another winning program. So once again, like, share, subscribe, do all those things for me. I really appreciate the support. And and if you are coaching here and you're interested in some of my services, get a hold of me. I've got some programs I do with individual athletes, with your coaches, and with your teams that I work with that are worth the time and money. You'll see a lot of progress in yourself, in your players, in your culture, if you just lean into some of this stuff a little bit and really let your team, yourself, your players know that it's important, that this mental side and what you're focused on, it can pay big dividends. So once again, I appreciate you joining. It's been fun. It's been a great time talking to you. And I am your host, Coach Matt Toman. This is the Mental Metal Podcast. And always remember to forge your metal.